Hello you guys, thank you so much for joining me on another video. If you're new here, karibu sana. My name is Rozitta. Don't forget to subscribe in case you haven't subscribed, and if you have subscribed, don't forget to turn on notifications for notifications every time I upload a new video. So on today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my journey of how I wrote my very first book. So in case you didn't know, I'm an author. I published my first book in 2018 November, but the journey of writing this book began in 2017 January. So how did I get myself to decide that I wanted to do a book, to write a book? First of all, I was in a state where I wanted to share a message that is inspirational and a message that was going to encourage people out there, which answers the question that you need to ask yourself on why do you want to write a book. Of course, when you're trying to write a book, you must always have a purpose. It could be you're trying to entertain people. It could be you love writing. It could be you want to inspire people. It could be you just want to do a novel because you think you're creative. It could be you want to make money. And by the way, if you want to write a book to make money, sis, bro, just give up. Just give up. Because when you are beginning, when you make money your goal as an author, I think you'll be discouraged very fast. So anyway, have a reason for why you want to write a book. And mine was I wanted to encourage people. I wanted to inspire people through my experiences. I wanted to reach out to people and let them know that whatever it is they are going through, they could be at their rock bottom, but you know what? God can give you beauty for ashes. Writing a book is not something you wake up and you're like, I think I'm gonna write a book. No, you have to be inspired. You have to feel it from inside you. Inside there, you have to feel the potential coming out. So for me, if you know my story, you know that I am a gender-based violence survivor. So in 2017, January, around date 19th, I happened to experience a miracle that really pushed me into a new level of my healing journey. And it was on that particular day that I felt truly convicted to write a book and share the message out of the testimony that I had received at that particular time. If this is all new or this is your first time on this channel, please watch these videos that are over here so that you can catch up on what I'm trying to say over here. So at that particular moment, I was like, hey, if this can happen to me, if I can receive such a breakthrough, if I can receive such an encouraging testimony at this trying time of my life, I believe that anyone else can, and I should let them know that so that they can stop fainting, they can stop giving up hope, and that is how my journey began. Make sure you get to that state of like revelation or something, depending on the genre that you want to write, of course, because you don't necessarily want to write Christian-based books, which is what I wanted to do. You can write a novel, you can write a fiction, whatever it is. Just make sure you get yourself to that point, which leads me to the second thing that you have to do: get a title for your book. Now, how did I decide on the title of my book? That scripture, Isaiah 63 verse 3, is it 61 verse? I always confuse, is it 61 3, is it 63 1? Anyway, I'll write the scripture here so that I don't get it wrong. I got, that is the scripture that came into my heart at that moment. It's like an aha moment, and that was the scripture that came to me, and I decided I was going to use that portion of scripture as the title of my book and call it Beauty for Ashes. I've always loved that scripture and I didn't know why, and here it was, and I was like, oh, maybe this is why, because God knew I was gonna write a book and have it called Beauty for Ashes. So I've had many other different authors say things like they had like 5 different titles, and then they told people to choose which title is more catchy. I didn't do that. You can still do that, because if you're writing a fictitious book, you have to have a title that is captivating and that's making the reader want to just get the book and try to read. But for me, I knew from start that this was the title I needed to get into. So have an idea of what you want to write that book, and then come up with the titles and decide for yourself or involve people, whatever works for you. Now, for me, when I was starting to write my book, honestly, I didn't know how I was gonna go about it. But luckily, my dad is an author too. So I guess I had someone to look up to, and I went to him and I was like, I want to read the book, so how do I start? I know it will be called Beautiful Ashes, but there's so many wild things on my mind. I don't know what to write, where, how, when, I was very confused, and probably you're also in that state, So my dad gave me a very good advice at that particular point. He told me, if you already have the title, the next thing for you to do is create a table of content. Yeah, and that is the third thing that you have to do. Create content, like subtopics for your book. Those are what we call chapters. And for me, let me read for you the chapters on my book, because I wrote them even before I knew what I was gonna feel in those chapters. So chapter 1 was Ashes and Beauty. This was a chapter that explains what is ashes, what is beauty, in the context of what I wanted to write a book. So it was like an introductory chapter. Then chapter 2 is your identity. Chapter 3 is God's will misrepresented. Chapter 4 is praise your way out. Chapter 5 is utilize power in your tongue. Chapter 6, which is my favorite, I love this chapter so much. It's called Ishi. Ishi is it's Hebrew for my husband. Chapter 7 is the beauty in salvation. Chapter 8 is take charge of your life. Chapter 9 is the paradigm shift. Chapter 10 is let them know the power of God, which is a very practical chapter for me. I wrote this chapter the moment I decided that I was gonna let people know what God has been doing in my life, as long as my story is concerned, as long as my experience is concerned. I wrote this chapter to encourage myself that I needed to go out there and reach out to somebody who just needs to hear a word from me, or somebody who just needs to hear that he or she is not alone, somebody who just needs an example of, or a testimony, basically. And that is why I wrote chapter 10 as let them know the power of God. That is the third thing that you need to do. Create a table of content or create sub chapters. After that, all you need to do is start filling in the chapters. And in my journey, I started writing the book officially in 2017 September. Remember, I got the idea of writing the book in January, but I started writing it in September. And the reason is because I wanted to write out of my own experience. I wanted to write out of my own healing. I didn't want to write what I've had other people say. I wanted to write what I've personally experienced. So the moment I got an idea of what to write as a book, I gave myself time to experience what God wanted me to write on the book. So I started writing the book in September. When I began filling in the chapters, I didn't go to chapter 1 and then wrote the whole chapter and I was like, it is good, like how God created the world. Anyway, I didn't do that. I didn't go to chapter 2 and I was like, wow, nice, I think we can no. I used to do chapter 10. I write 2 paragraphs, then I feel the inspiration I'm getting is leading me to content that should be under chapter 5. So I'd go back to that chapter, which I know can be very confusing for some of you because we are different, of course. You don't have to do it my way. But for me, I really wanted to write only when I'm feeling inspired and not when it's my mind. I wanted it to come from deep within me. So I would get a certain revelation or a certain direction, or I'd feel a move to write about certain things, and I'd go write, and then I'd feel like, I think I've preempted as long as that chapter is concerned so far. So I'd stop at that. And then the next time I feel like I want to go on a different chapter and write about it. And so that is how I used to do it. And I used to do that, but it wasn't a process like I did every day. It was not Monday to Monday, no. That days I would write like on the first week, and then I lose inspiration completely. And I'd stay a whole month without even thinking about the book. Or sometimes I would write so much at one time, and then I would feel so overwhelmed because remember, I was not writing out of my thoughts. I was not writing my imagination. I was not writing my opinion. I was writing what I'm feeling inspired by God to write, So at sometimes some words were too heavy, So I'd read them and I'm like, I need a break. I need a break. I need a break. And it got to a point I didn't write for about 3 to 4 months. Literally running away from writing because it was so heavy for me, so heavy. And I'd write some things and I'd put the laptop aside and just cry because I'm feeling it. It's coming from inside. I can't explain, but it was a very unique experience. That's what I'm trying to say. But I didn't write it continuously. I only wrote when I was feeling moved to write, which takes me to the point where if you're writing a book, an inspirational book, a Christian-based book, you cannot force inspiration because your readers will feel it when you're forcing. They will feel like, ay, apa alijiforce sana, So only write when you're feeling inspired. Only write when you also agree with what you're writing. Only write when you're feeling this is the right time for me to write this, because sometimes you're also not in the right headspace to write something. So wait for that time, and you don't have to pressure yourself to write a book in a month, which is what I thought I would do, by the way. I was like, in a month I'll be done with this book. I took a year, trust me. So that is the other thing you do. Just start by filling the chapters you're feeling inspired to feel. But if you're doing a novel or a fiction book, of course you have to be systematic, because again, it's a story. It's something that's continuous from the beginning to the end. So there's that. You also have to consider the genre that you are trying to write about. The next thing that you need to do is start editing the book. I edited my book 6 times before it got to the publisher. So the first time after I filled in the chapters, I reread the whole book, and this time I was not reading to edit. I was just reading to feel. I put myself to be as if I'm the reader of the book. And so I started reading the book, and I would see where I could have chosen better words and I'd underline that. Or sometimes I would edit out if it's just a small thing. Sometimes I'd find myself changing the paragraphs, like the second last paragraph will fit best if it's the second paragraph from the beginning, So there was that as well. So I did that the second time, then the third time, then the fourth time, then the fifth time. Just editing the book to make sure it's making sense and it's flowing and it's not losing my readers at any particular point. And by the time I was done reading the 5th time, I was sure about how the book is gonna turn out. So the moment I read the 6th time, by that time, after reading it for the 5th time, I submitted it to my publisher, but I had also submitted it to my dad so that he can read, and I also submitted it to Martha. She's a writer, so I knew her perspective will be very helpful, and if there are any repetition or words that nimejirudia sana, I knew she was gonna help me in that. So she also edited the book for me, and then whatever they submitted back to me, I gave it to the publisher without reading. I was like, I cannot read this book anymore because it was very heavy for me, So I gave it to the publisher, and I published my book, with Elohim Publishers in Nairobi. I will put their contacts in the description box below. You can reach out, hear the rates and all that. Just get to know them if you're interested in publishing. So I gave them the book, and then they returned to me for approval. So that time they sent it back for approval. That's when I read it for the 6th time. And now I read it from the beginning to the end, and I was like, a few fonts were off, so I'd changed them. A scripture has been misquoted, I'd changed that, and then that was it. I knew the book is complete, and that is when I submitted it to the publisher. Then from there, I had work to do. I needed to choose a cover. Now, for me, I think I had always wanted to have a cover with my face on it for some reason. Here is the cover of my book. I knew that I was gonna want to have my face on the book, and it was just a preference, because at some point somebody asked me, why did you choose to have your face on the book and you're not famous? I was like, who said you have to be famous to put your face on a book? It's my book after all, and that's what I want to do, you know. So anyway, I knew that I wanted my face on the book, and then I came up with a concept, which I should probably explain right now. If you look at the bottom here, we have ashes, literally. This gray thing, this is ashes. All this over here, it's ashes. So I decided I was gonna have ashes at the bottom, and then we have some flowers that are growing out of the ashes, and I wanted that to be there so that it can symbolize how, despite having ashes, something beautiful can grow out of it. And that was the concept that I wanted to put on the cover of my book. So you can see some ashes, and some flowers have bloomed out of the ashes. And I wrote the title, Beauty for Ashes. So that's the concept I had come up with. And then, of course, I went to my graphic designer who helped me design everything. I also did a photo shoot for this cover. I went to Creative Shots here in Nakuru, Creative Shots Photography, where I did my photo shoot, and we came up with this very, very unique cover. I think it's a very unique cover, and I love how it looks. So yeah, and finally, I submitted the cover to my publisher. Everything was put together, and I decided the number of books I wanted to print. I printed 1,000 books, and that was the end process. The first time I received my book, it was like a dream, because it was on a Sunday, and my publisher goes to House of Bread Deliverance Church under Bishop Mark Karaoke. So he told me I should go to their church that day so that I can pick at least a box of books so that I can start selling and all that. So when I went to church that day, I met with him. He's also a pastor there. And I remember he introduced me to Bishop Mark. That was the first time I met Bishop Mark. And we actually sat in his office, and he got to know about my book. And then when I'm gifting him a copy, because he's the one who received the very first copy of this book, he told me, are you staying for the second service? And I was like, yes, I am. And he said, good, because I think I'm gonna launch the book for you. It was so divine. I was like, oh my God, Bishop Mark is launching my book. Amazing. I was super honored, and I remember he called out my name, and he was like, Rozitta, where is Rozitta? And I ran so fast. I'll insert photos over here so that you can see the photos that were taken. So he launched the book, and that was how the journey of my writing the book ended. So let's get on to the next part before this video becomes too long. When I started selling the book, I did very, very many mistakes. One thing I did not consider when I decided that I was gonna write a book is I didn't think about the sales. Because for one, I used to write a lot on Facebook. I'd write things and people would be so inspired, and some of them would tell me, Rozitta, you need to write a book. So my little mind, my little brain, my little head told me I have ready people, because they're the ones who were encouraging me to write a book, you know. So the moment I tell them, so hey, you've been wanting a book, here's a book. Crickets. So my point is, I did not consider how I was gonna market the book. And if I had considered how I was gonna market the book and how I was gonna make sales, I would not have printed as many books as I did. I would have introduced it like in doses, so that they had the demand, they had the production. So the mistake I did is production all the way up, 1,000 books. Like this, here are 1,000 books. And then now we start selling one book at a time, which is a mistake I wouldn't want any one of you to do, or I wouldn't want to repeat the same mistake. And so my advice to myself, if I read the next book, or to you who is planning to write another book, begin by first of all creating a market base, or start thinking of how you're going to market. Whether you're going to do an ebook first so that people can buy 8 books, and then probably that those are going to prefer hard copy, then you can print it out. Just think of how you would market it before you decide to print 1,000 books like I did. So just get yourself to that point first of all. You can use social media or online marketing at the moment, because everything right now is being sold online. So begin by doing that. Create that base. Begin by having an ebook, which would cost you almost nothing to publish, because the moment the book is published as an ebook, you don't have to incur the cost of printing and all that. So it's gonna save you some money and probably some losses. So get yourself to that point. Put out the ebook, let people buy the ebook first, and then if demand arises, you can begin now by printing the book. So that's a mistake and a tip I've given you at the same time. So that is it for me. That's how I wrote my book. That's the mistake I did, and a tip I've shared with you. And I think right now publishing a book is so much easier, because people have gotten to a point where they can publish their books on Amazon. And it's a whole new process. If you're interested in me talking about how to publish a book on Amazon, do comment it down below, and I'm gonna share with you how to publish a book on Amazon, which will cost you almost, okay, not zero, but it will cost you a quarter or less of what you would have used when printing physical copies with your local publisher. That is it for me. That is it from me. From me today. I hope you have learned a thing or two. And if you want to write a book, I wish you all the best. I wish you good luck. I wish you inspiration. I wish you well. I wish you motivation. I wish you inspo and creativity and everything else you are gonna need when writing that book. And all the best in your journey as an author. Do remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and also turn on the notification bell. Until next time, bye guys.